I am Kostadis Mizaras, then will speak Chrysanthi Badeka and Anastasios Theodoropoulos. I am an actor and a puppeteer, and I really want to thank all of you for being here at this time. As you all might know, the term virtual reality is attributed to Anton Artaud, who is first mentioned in 1932 in his essay series The Theatre and its Double, Le Théâtre et son Double. All true alchemists know that the alchemical symbol is a mirage, and as theatre is a mirage, and its perpetual allusion to the materials and the principle of the theatre found in almost all alchemical books should be understood as an expression of an identity of which alchemists are extremely aware, existing between the world in which the characters, objects, images, and in general way, all that constitutes the virtual reality of the theater develops, and the purely fictitious and illusionary world in which the symbols of alchemy are evolved. These symbols, which indicate what might be called philosophical states of matter, already start the mind on its way toward that fairly purification, that unification, and that emanciation in a horribly simplified and pure sense. Of the natural molecules of its way towards operation, which permits, by sheer force or destructive analysis, the reconception and reconstitution of solids according to the equilibrium of spiritual descent by which they are ultimately become gold again. It is not sufficiently understood how much the material symbolism used to designate this mysterious operation corresponds to a parallel symbolism in the mind, a deployment of ideas and appearances by which all that is theoretical and theatrical in the theater is designated and can be distinguished philosophically. Starting from the assumption that technological means have already changed human space, body movement, but also basic human functions of coexistence and sociability. Therefore, they already function as a tool of synthesis or a co-creator. We attempt to return to the primary human needs, the time of encounter and coexistence. We are trying, in few words, to reinvent gunpowder. On the first 3 days of December 2023, the theatrical performance Brave New World, inspired by Krzysztof Garbadzewski and based on a book by Aldous Huxley, happened at Photographia Theatre in Patra. It also happened simultaneously in 3 other theaters around the world. I will not talk a lot about the play itself, the reason for which the collaboration happened, but about the collaboration itself. The Brave New World, a Huxley book originally published in 1932, is a particularly fertile material for a theatrical stage research today, as the questions Huxley raises, especially about what defines the human species, are more relevant than ever. At a time when the use of AI and virtual reality is central to public discourse, including the artistic sphere, Brave New World offers scope for reflection and experimentation, not only about the elusive boundaries between the real and the virtual, but also on our relationship with the language itself, which is manipulative or revelatory, and can ultimately become a creator of worlds. How do we communicate? To what extent is our human discourse, like our artificial intelligence, often formatted, coded, and by the same token unified and therefore limited? In Brave New World, it was all about duality and the invention of thought. Technology is one of the greatest weapons of domination of the book and its era, and of our time, but paradoxically, it may also be one of the last places where humans can find temporary autonomous zones, places of emancipation and attempts to reconnect to each other. The performance was a first theatrical research theatrice of simultaneous performance in common virtual space and 4 different physical spaces. The performance unfolded in the midst of 3 different time zones in the Theatre of Julius Ostera in Grosowski, Poland, Royal District Theatre in Tbilisi, Georgia, Lithografion Theatre in Patra, Greece, and Regional Academic Theatre in Ivano-Frankivsk, Ukraine. The connection to the common virtual world was realized using a VR head-mounted display, as well as using live broadcast and live filming. The visual effect of the above was visible to the audience on a screen, as you can see in the photos behind me, located in the stage areas. They were displayed and alternatively in an alternative hybrid world where the real and the virtual merge. The subjective shot of the heroes through their helmets of the actors on the stages, as well as cinematic shots of live footage of the stage actions inside the theater. A total of 13 actors and more than 20 technicians on 4 stages, of course, computers, projectors, microphones, cables, lights, programs, and applications, which alone do not accomplish much, but with the international cooperation and resourcefulness of the participants, accomplished a complex and intricate technical and artistic work. And now I will give the floor to Chrysanthi to continue our presentation.
Okay. So I was saying that the constellation just Kostadis described created a new trans-space and extended workflow between all of us, not as a Greek hub, but also as a transnational team. So I would like to go through 3 significant elements of this project. Number 1 is the scenography as a transmedia storytelling interface. The architectural layout that you can see on the pictures of all the set in our theater was based on the idea of a lab with all the essential technical components and channels of communication appeared on stage. This let me, as the director of the Greek Hub, develop an instant composition. On one hand, there was the main live streaming of the virtual scenes that was projected on the main screen. On the other, there was a second projection presenting either the pose of our actor in VR or live feed shows I was filming with a gimbal on or off stage. Additionally, visuals were presented in a monitor screen, while 2 channels of sound with information in different languages and pre-recorded Greek text were available only for our audience. Number 2 is the dynamic real-time direction. So directing a trans-space spectacle with an instant composing logic creates a space for new ideas and roles to emerge. For instance, because of the technical needs, there were multiple moments where an interactive choreography of the geometries of the movement in both physical and virtual space needed to occur. Therefore, I had to act also as a choreographer on stage, directing the movement of the performer in the VR headset, or even as a gimbal camera woman, choreographing the live feed shooting of the subject or the audience, the technical collaborators, or even backstage. I think in the pictures you can see all those elements and have a little taste of the performance. Last thing I would like to address is the body of the performer in VR, which in our case was Kostadis. He was the only one in the VR headset, as a channel of communication in the trans space, as an extended collective body. So, although we were always able to project for our audience, for the Greek audience, the live streaming of the performance, the actor in VR was literally the only gate of entrance or exit of the trans space. I will give you a profound example for this to understand what I mean. So, when we invited the audience to come on stage to participate in a dance scene, it was dramaturgically served as a ritual, but for us, it was a way to open the portal for Brave New World. This transformed the expanded body of the actor to a collective body where the audience, as an active being in the participatory scene, was decoding the flow of the events and interweaving the fabric of narration and interaction between man and machine, predetermined, unpredictable, experiment, and dramaturgy. And I would like to invite here Tassos to share a little bit about the technical things, which is the last part of our presentation.
Great. Thank you, Chrysanthi. Thank you, Kostadis, for being together to this journey. Thank you all, Christoph and all the team for making this happen. So yeah, I'll talk you about the technical part that brought out the artistic. And from my part, as a technical guy and research collaborator of the Greek team, I'd like to reflect on how technology didn't just support the performance, but actively shaped it. In Brave New World, camera, code, and interaction became elements of composition. All the technical systems we use, with synchronized avatars, real-time streaming, and live camera work, allowed us to build a hybrid mise-en-scène where actors, projections, avatars, and environments coexisted and overlapped. But in the Greek hub, we approach this technical layer not as something hidden backstage, but as a live lab. There were multiple screens, as Chrysanthi said, overlapping projections and visible computers, and all the technicians were interacting in real time into this dramaturgy. So this was a conscious choice. Instead of concealing these mechanisms, we exposed it, and this allowed to the audience to see how the presence was mediated in control and all these layers of data, software, and embodiment coexisted. Then this approach extended beyond the stage. We decided after the first performance to organize an interactive moment in the foyer of the theater where audience members were invited to wear the VR equipment and see themselves as avatars. So this short embodiment experience had a strong educational impact. We figured out that it helped them understand what the actor with the HMD was seeing and then experiencing. So this way gave us a brief immersion and helped the audience to shift from passive spectators to empathetic observers. Moreover, we had many elements and decisions that we got inspired by game studies. There are models in game design like the 3Cs, which stands about camera, character, controls, and the known MDA framework about mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics. Let me focus on this MDA for a moment. One of the interesting aspects of this model was that it makes a distinction between the designer and the player experience. So there are mechanics, which are rules, systems, and constraints, and this is mostly the domain of the developer. There are the aesthetics, and these come for emotionally and experientially on the player side, and this domain is the audience or user. Finally, there are dynamics, and these are behaviors and interactions that unfold between the two. And in Brave New World, I believe we saw a similar duality. As technical collaborators, we were designing the mechanics, how avatars move, how scenes switch, how voice and visual stream across locations. But what emerged was that those mechanics were played, performed, and decoded by both the actors and the audience. So, like in games, the final meaning was not embedded in the system, but it was co-creating through interaction. Closing, in that sense, Brave New World showed us how performance in VR is not just spatial, but procedural. It unfolds through rules, inputs, constraints, and real-time negotiation, exactly like in a game, where narrative, presence, and embodiment replace scores and levels. For me, this is where the most exciting hybrid work is happening. In these entangled systems where theater borrows logic from games and games borrow presence from performance. So, Kostadis, Chrysanthi, if you want to come here and make this closing. Thank you all from the
Thank
Greek
you.
Hub.